Guys, welcome to the video. So today we're going to be talking about adding additional synth effects and fleshing out our bass line a little bit more. Okay, so first step that we're going to do is listen to what we've already created. Right, so let's have a listen back to what we have so far. Alright, yeah, not bad. Okay, so what we're going to do is grab all of our layers and duplicate them out. Alright, so highlight everything, Control D, and then we'll have multiple copies. I'm also going to recopy the baseline as well, so that we have that playing pretty much the entire duration, apart from the intro. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is grab our baseline and create something that's a little bit more deep and resonant. Okay, so something that ties into our sub bass end rather than being up high and melodic. Okay, because if we listen back to our baseline soloed, it's quite melodic, right? But we also need to make sure that we have a deeper groove going on at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this track, I'm going to right click and duplicate it. I could just hit Control D as well, but I wanted to show you guys the other way of doing it as well. So we now have two copies of our house bass. Okay, going to rename this one to house bass melodic bass. Okay, so our first one is the melodic bass, and then this one going to rename to sub bass. Now, on our first track here, we want to tidy up the low end a little bit. So I'm going to double click to go into our track here. And what I'm going to do is go into my audio effects and I'm going to grab EQ8. Click and drag that over on the right hand side here. Now when I play this back, you'll be able to see the frequencies which are being used. So you can see that there's some low end activity down here, like some sub bass, but most of it's hanging around the actual regular bass line area. Okay. So we're going to tidy up this sub bass here and create more sub bass movement with our second layer. So all I'm going to do is grab number one, drag down a little bit. We're also going to change the type to be a hard cutoff. So this is a high pass filter where we filter off everything below a certain point. Now you can experiment with the amount that you want to adjust this by. So I'm going to up the frequency actually a little bit and see what happens if we cut out our main frequency, like our main root note. Actually, you want to filter off a little bit more. Now, there's actually one frequency in there that I can hear as well that's holding down the root note. I might get rid of that in a little while, but before I jump into that, I'm going to solo our second bass here with it. Now, if I just play this, it'd just sound identical to what it sounded like originally anyway, right? So, but we need to change the sound of this bass here. So I'm going to start off by jumping in, going to highlight all of my notes, and I'm going to drop them down an octave, okay? To drop them down an octave, I'm going to hold Shift and press down arrow. Now this will be a mixture of a deeper bass layer and our high bass layer. Okay. Now the same way that we filtered off the the low end on our first layer, we need to filter off the high end on this sub-bass layer. So I'm going to open up this one, drag our same EQ8 across from our audio effect window, and everything above a particular point. So we're going to go the number 4 band and grab a low pass filter. So low pass because it lets everything below a certain point pass through. Now if we listen to just that layer, oops, sorry, so I'll load everything. Right, really deep, to the point where my headphones are actually struggling to play it back. But it tidies it up a little bit more, right? So now we have our melodic bass and our sub bass. Now, something else that I'm going to do is I'm going to let my melodic bass keep the rhythm, right? So let it have the da 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 sort of section. What I'm going to do with my sub bass, however, is stay to our root notes and create that sort of pumping effect that we're used to having. So I'm going to delete all of my passing notes. Okay, that one can probably stay there. Right, delete all my passing notes and extend my tonic notes to take up the entirety of the area. Okay, so I've just got some really long bass notes. Okay, there we go. So now if I have a listen to this one, we've just got those single notes. Now, if you can't hear that, let me just shift it all back up an octave. And I'll pop it back down the octave because that's what we're going to be keeping. Okay. Now I'm going to balance it out by creating a sidechain compressor. All right. And this is going to really help with that pumping groove. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to get my kick. Okay. I actually need to create a kick channel and get that set up to compress down the audio of the sub bass when it hits, and then come back up pretty quickly afterwards. Okay, so this is a bit of an advanced technique, so just follow along step by step. Okay, so you're going to open up the sub bass channel here, same way that we have our EQ. Now instead of grabbing our EQ, we're going to grab our compressor. Okay, going to drag and drop that over here. Now we have our compressor. We also need to press our little arrow here so we open up our side chain. Okay, and now we have our compressor set up. What we need to do though is we need to create an audio input trigger. Okay, so something to tell the compressor when to turn down the sub bass. So we're going to go for that like kick and then bass hit sound. Okay, so that we don't end up with a bunch of muddy bass, essentially. So to do this, I'm going to create a fresh track. I'm just going to create a regular audio track. Okay. And on here, I'm going to put kicks. Now, these kicks are not going to be audible though, right? So you can choose pretty much any sort of kick sound that you want, because we're not going to actually have them on. Sure, this one will do. And like I said, it doesn't matter what sort of kick you grab, right? Because we're going to just put it on every single beat, right, where our kicks are. So I've highlighted that first beat there, dragged it in, highlight that first beat, and you'll see when I hit duplicate, it lines up where our kicks are. Okay, now I can just grab all of that. duplicate that out for the duration. Okay, so just Control D, get those kicks to line up with our MIDI information. Now, as I said, it doesn't really matter what sort of kick you're using because we're just using it as a sidechain. So it's never going to be audible. Okay, so to do that, we're going to turn off this track by pressing on the number there. Right, so when that number isn't yellow and highlighted, you can't hear that track. Now, under the sub bass, go back to here, double click on our track here so we have our sub bass layer. Now we're going to set our sidechain input to the name of that track, which was Kick 70s 4. If I wanted to as well, I could rename that to just sidechain. So that's Control R to rename here from sidechain. I've turned it on, and we'll have a listen to our sub bass, and you'll hear that it starts cutting in and out. Right, so now whenever there's a kick, it's ducking that volume down. Right, let's have our release pretty quick, have a heavier ratio so that it gain reduces even harder. Right, how cool. So now we've got that sort of ducking effect. Now, if you wanted to hear what that sounds like on our melodic bass as well, we can give it a shot. There's no rules. It might actually fit quite well. Let's have a listen. Oop. Now, I actually kind of want some more attack on that. So, I don't know, might still keep the compressor on, but not have it duck so hard. So it still adds a little bit of movement there, but doesn't kill the signal completely. Now that's sounding pretty cool so far. What I'm going to do is I might actually adjust our kick sound a little bit here though as well. So to do that, the kick 909 is currently locked in as the sample, but we can adjust the sounds here. So for example, I'm going to solo this, and I'm going to play around with these settings over here to adjust the amount of low end and stuff that we're getting. So I don't need much mids going on there. Nice and overdriven. I'm also going to turn my claps down altogether as well. So to do that, I'm going to click on my clap sample, and I'm going to just turn the gain down here, because this is essentially a very fancy sampler. Here. Okay. Hi-hat's also probably a bit rough. Alright. Now, I've also realised I've got duplicates of that sub bass from before, so I need to duplicate this out now so that we've got that just being the sub. Okay, so the next part of this that we're going to do is we're going to add some additional sound effects. Okay, So now that we've got our nice pumping bass, and of course you'll just keep adjusting the volumes of different tracks as you go. I'm going to have a look for just some additional effects, see what is hovering around in here, okay, because there are a lot of sounds like that, and some are a bit abrasive like that. What we're going to do is just find a couple of sounds that we don't mind the sound of. Now, I don't hate that. Okay, so I'm going to use this all state sound, and the way that I'm going to use it though is, you know what, with this one I'm just going to drag into an audio track and have it play at a random point in time. The only thing that I'm unsure of is what tuning this is, like what note. Don't know that it sits that well, hang on. Might need to change the pitch of that to fit in. So, going to see if I can find the tuner. Under audio effect tuner, I'm going to drag that onto. So that is a bit sharp of an A. So just sharp of an A, and I'm working in E. So if I count up and go A, B, C, D, E, I'd either have to shift it up to E, so up 5 tones to get it up there, or down a 4th. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's have a look at our pitch shifter, which actually I can just do in here, double click, and I can transpose it. So to get it to E, I need to go from A up to E. So if we had a piano in front of us, we could go A, and then 1 semitone would be A to A sharp, and then 2 would be to B, then 3 to C, 4 to C sharp, 5 to D, 6 to D sharp, 7 to E. And I also noticed that it was also a bit sharp of A, so I'm going to tune it down a couple of cents. Now let's have a listen to that and see what the tuner says. Tuner doesn't want to say anything. But you can tell that tuning it up that far has actually really helped it sit. Something else that you can do as well is, of course, you could get that whole transposition, you could shift it down a whole octave and all that sort of gear as well through use of a sampler. So that's the next thing that I'm going to do with another sample. So just having this one quiet, and in here, I'm only going to repeat it at the... Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to have it be that long. I'm going to shorten this clip. If once my computer stops lagging, I'm going to shorten this clip, and I'm actually going to take a couple of chunks out of it as well. So I just feel like slicing and dicing a little bit, see what sort of sounds we can make, because it's sort of a nice ambient sort of sound. So I'm going to Control E in a couple of spots and just create a bit of a stutter effect and see what this does for it. See if it does anything interesting. Or I could just be making it sound like rubbish. We'll find out shortly. So, alright, let's see what this does to it. Just a couple of little stutters. Oh, need some more stutters. And probably some more so towards the tail as well. So I'm just randomly slicing away now. And just gonna, so that was using my arrow key, just going across, Control E to slice it. Let's have a listen to this. Okay, that's a little bit cooler. Fits the aesthetic a little bit more. Might need to put some more slices in there. It's being real destructive with it. Let's see what happens. Then I might see what happens if I duplicate this and reverse it. Sounds a bit cooler. Wonder what happens if I turn it up and transpose it down an octave. So that was shift down. Ooh. So highlighting it shift down will, well, it did shift it down with this one. Transpose shift down. And then maybe transpose shift up a couple of octaves. Let's see what happens. Okay, there we go. That's kind of cool. Then maybe just once every 2 rounds with that one. So I'm going to click highlight all of that, duplicate it out, so it just does it every so often. Alright, let's see what other random sounds I have. Mind you, I haven't gone past A yet. Okay, cool. I'm going to show you guys how to use a sampler now. So I'm going to create a fresh MIDI track. And in here, I'm going to start off, I'm just going to chuck the sampler on the actual audio that I want, this shaker just on this track for the moment. I'm not going to use it there though. Then under instruments, I'm going to grab a sampler and drag it onto MIDI track here. Grab that sample, drop it into there, delete it from there because I don't want it there. And now what this gives me is control over the pitch and rhythm of this particular shaker. So I'm going to do a nice run up, like a sort of sound. So I'm going to turn off loop. I just want my step up to probably last only this long, really. Now, the sample is set on, the root is C3. So when I play the C3 note in my piano roll here, just double clicking the access, so this one will be that actual shaker sound. Let me solo that and I'll show you. Okay, but what I can do is I can now create some pretty wild sounds regarding pitch and rhythm. So I'm going to grab that note and start off by doing a step up run. So duplicate, up, duplicate, up, duplicate, up. And now I'll have like that. Now beyond that, I can also create it a little bit more glitchy by having some notes shorter than others. Maybe squeezing a couple of notes together strangely. And then just duplicating, shift up, shift down. Let's see what happens here. Okay, I want these last couple of notes though. to be a bit longer. I reckon I want like a dat sort of sound. Whee! Didn't want to go into drawing tool. Cool. Now, might sound weird on its own, but with everything else, like I said, it's all about context. Now, I reckon that all happened a bit too slow. I wanted it to be a little bit quicker, a bit more rapid as well. So, I'm going to grab all of these notes and squeeze them into half of the area. So I just highlight all of them, grab that little toggle up there and drag them. Now it's just a cool. Now I can duplicate that out and have that play at different random points in time as well. If I really like, I'll grab one more strange sound to pop in just as an audio track, because this one's already going on for quite a while. I'm just going to grab a random sound from a particular area. Okay, there we go. I'm going to grab this loop actually and have it play at the end of every second round. So notice I've got 3 at the moment, so I need to duplicate this out one more to get the proper length to be able to do this. Grab all that, duplicate it out, duplicate, then chuck that here. I also need to fix the pattern, so I don't want you. I don't want you. You need to shift to about here. There we go. Now within here as well, we could play around with other bits and pieces, but I'm thinking of just having it nice and quiet. Cool. There we go. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Just essentially adding additional percussion, extra effects. The next one, I'll give you a very quick preview, will essentially be grabbing this sub bass layer, duplicating it out, and seeing if it's worth creating some nice lush chords over the top. Okay? Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.